It's another Friday, and we're back to have a few conversations. So I was thinking, what should I talk about? And then I realized that I've spoken a lot about the different kinds of abuse that occur, but I had never really touched on a huge part of abuse, which is post-separation abuse. Yep. Sigh. You thought by leaving the environment it will stop? Yeah, you might have your peace, but it doesn't. So, if this is the first time you're listening to my podcast, my name is Ama. I go by the name Ama. Some call me Emefa, some call me Doris, some call me Emmy, some call me Tinker, some call me Tinkerbell, some call me Mommy. Whichever name you know me by, I respond to all of them. I appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by. And today we touch on post-separation abuse. What is that? Oh, but I thought leaving will solve the problem. Yes, it does take you away from the environment of the abuse. It does also allow you to set boundaries, which you hitherto couldn't because your abuser was, right there with you as you process the emotions that you had just gone through. So post-separation abuse, as the name says, is abuse after you've managed to leave your abuser, if you're a victim of domestic violence or abuse, as we call it. And it's usually just a transition of the various types of abuse that the victim face while they are with their abuser. Now, what is evident when it comes to post-separation abuse is how the abuser still tries to use coercive control to kind of instill fear and some sort of control over the victim. Now, typically, when it comes to abuse, it's always about control. The abuser doesn't want the victim to have a voice. They want the victim to kind of be an extension of themselves instead of a unit, a person in a unit where they complement each other's strengths and weaknesses and all kinds of things. The abuser just wants to give instructions and doesn't even make any adjustments of themselves because they just have a need to control the victim, right? So the abuser uses different types of tactics, included and not restricted to, things like counterparenting. So because of the anger built in the abuser towards the victim, their judgment center is compromised, and so they make it seem as though the healthy parent or victim is not doing right with the children. They ask the children questions about when the parents will return or have, your mother or father has, ignored me, so I'm also going to ignore them. I'm going to do whatever I like. Did they tell you to do this? What are they up to? Using the children. So maybe if their bedtime is 8:00 and it was agreed whilst you were with the abuser, once they go and see the the other parent, they kind of bend the rules and twist things around just to make it look like they are the cooler person. Now, domestic abuse by proxy, the abuser continues to try and exert control and intentionally torments the other parents by weaponizing the children, by using them as a pawn in a variety of ways, asking questions about victims' movements, where they went, what time they get back, how long they stayed. Sometimes, after even speaking to the children, they would, deliberately call the victim with the pretext of asking them something with the intent of corroborating what kind of information they had picked up from the kids, or they send flying monkeys to come and say, oh, why did you do this? Why did you say that? Because they don't have access to the victim, because perhaps the victim has set boundaries and they are very strict about what kind of conversations that they want to have with the abuser. Because bear in mind that when it comes to abuse, whatever kind of reaction that you give to the abuser, they feed off of it. They're just looking for a certain kind of reaction from you. So even if it's by proxy, by sending a third party, finding out from the kids, because they know the children will say, oh, so and so called and they asked that, where were you, where did you go, what did you, that kind of thing. So they know you will get the message that, oh, I'm still keeping tabs on you. You get what I mean? They don't even mind using the kids. That's how they can get. So they sometimes go as far as even call domestic staff, drivers, or anyone who might give them any information about you. They neglect or abusive parenting. Despite the victim, they do not show up for things like birthdays, Christmas, school activities, important things that have to do with the children. They postpone dates and events with the kids. They don't make any effort to see them. They don't show up at all. They're like, oh, when you come back, I'll do this for you. Kind of sowing a seed of, it's because you're not here, that's why I cannot be a parent. But my belief is that if a relationship doesn't work out and two people or one person decides that I can't do with this toxic environment and I don't even want to be in it, your role as a parent doesn't end. You might have your differences, but as civil human beings, your roles as parents must supersede everything else when it comes to your words. That is what respect, love for your children, love for yourself. If you had any love for your spouse and it didn't even work out, there should be some civility in how things are handled. So I feel like, using such words, you are, to actively involve you don't need to actively involve children, spend time with the children. This is usually a tactic to force the victim's hand to come back, because they are actually laying the blame at the victim's door. And that's the thing about abusive people. They will never take responsibility for their action. One of the major markers of even trying to feel as though they are actually hearing you and they are willing to make a change is if they actually decide to take the blame and work with it. But abusers will make an excuse for why they did what they did. They will blame the victim for why they did what they did. They will blame someone else for why they did what they did. They will blame friends, family, anyone but themselves for actually treating someone terribly. Can you imagine that? You're the one. And the funny thing is, these things that they are doing to the victim, they don't want anyone to hear about it. But everyone else takes the blame but themselves. The irony. Financial abuse. Oops. The abuser will either refuse to support the upkeep of the children or do it in a manner which has no thought or pattern to it, is inconsistent, is fraught with inconsistencies, and in a bid to frustrate the victim, all with the intent to force the victim to return. They will delay on things like payment of fees, upkeep money, money for the kids, and meeting other needs, or even providing alimony or spousal support. They will just behave as though you've left. So what money? Oops, crickets, silence. So none of that's going to happen. Legal abuse. Now, abusers always wear a mask because their intent isn't in good faith, but they act they act holier than thou in all intermediary sessions. Sometimes not even speaking at all, in a manner to make the victim look bad, because clearly when you've been through abuse and you're trying to get your points across, you come off sometimes as agitated because, can't you see what is going on? Don't you realize that he's winding us all around, or she's winding us all around? So then so that's why you've got to try and always keep your cool, because it's deliberate, right? And most of the time, victims sometimes don't have any kind of money to hire legal muscle. So in cases of maybe even child custody, they will set you up, act in a way and manner that, the system will go against you, because they have malicious intent. And then discarding. Oh, whoops. They will speak to children and use words like, oh, you've left me, I've missed you, you don't call me, to kids, but make no effort to spend time with them. Even you, the spouse, they will at one point bombard you, love bomb you, when they feel like they have a chance. And when they realize that you're resolute in your stance not to come back into the toxic environment, they don't want to have anything to do with you. They refuse to respond to your messages, your calls, your texts. And that is the one thing that that this human being hasn't changed, and they still do not realize that they have deeply wounded the victim. And it's actually confirmation for you to know that the gaslighting, the discarding, the silent treatment, the mental, the emotional verbal, it's still underneath the layer which they are showing, the mask which the person is showing is right there. It's not changed. But because of who they are as human beings, they don't realize that by doing these things, they are showing their hand. You get what I mean? So they do that, show their hand, all in a bit to make the children feel like if your mother or father had not taken you, would be together. But so the real person is whoever it is. But in a real sense of the word, they've discarded the children, they've discarded the mother, because they don't show up. They don't show up. But they gaslight and, manipulate the kids into thinking, oh, I'm there. Harassment and stalking. They'll be secretly scanning your post, social media, website, or any form of media that they can get. If you share a post box and you haven't changed it, they'll be trying to see which kind of mail is coming into your post box. If they have your access to your passwords and you haven't changed them, they will be secretly checking your mail to see if they can find anything, even if it's not incriminating. Who they are will make them use them against you. So it's all in a bit to prove that you are a terrible person and you deserve that kind of abuse, or you pushed your hand and the abuse wasn't deliberate but it was reactive. Meanwhile, you, the victim, are the one who sometimes will react to the abuse because you're like, what the hell, So that's just what it is. Isolation. This is one of the cocos. The abuser sets out to first use smear campaign. We've already talked about smear campaign countless times. So it's a deliberate, consistent effort to discredit the victim, lie against them by painting them in a manner to reduce their social capital, because the abuser needs to ensure that in all ways that he's still abusing the victim. He doesn't want family, friends, teachers, community relationships in any way to provide a support system for the victim, because they are counting on the fact that the victim will at some point crash and burn and crawl back. That is the intent. So they say things that isolate you from people who they think might help you. They try to damage the healthy relationships that you have with friends, family, and paint you in a certain manner so that you don't get help, because then it looks like you're being adamant in your stance, right? And so what happens is sometimes in such situations you might lose everyone that you care about and have no one. And have no one. Some people have a mental breakdown and they just go off. Just yesterday I was reading a story of one of the Baywatch stars' wives, and they had a divorce. She said the guy, in a fit of rage, tried to strangle her and verbally abuse her and all of that in her divorce. This woman was a fitness model, and after the divorce, sometimes when these things happen, people go downhill. They don't take care of themselves. They don't eat. They don't work out. And it's not as if they don't want to. The mental capacity and the physical capacity to do it is so difficult because there's shame, there's guilt, there's anger, there's pain. You are going through the emotions, the PSTD, and everything that comes with it. And then I think she got into debt, she got into drugs, and now she lives on the streets. And she said, oh, her friends and family don't care about her because when she reached out to people, no one. And I felt so sad for her because she fell into the hellhole of isolation and smear campaign and discarding. And sometimes abusers can be so convincing that, if you don't that's why I do this podcast. It's just for people to have resources so they know what it comes with, so they can make better choices for themselves in getting back into who they really are, because without the knowledge you can't make any changes. So bear in mind that post-separation abuse is aimed at boxing the victim into a corner so they can regain control over them. That's just the abuser's game. It's all about control. How dare you? How dare you tell people that I did this to you? How dare you even go and speak to someone about it? How dare you even make the decision that you're not going to do this anymore? How dare you? Like, you have the guts to actually get up and say, I'm not doing this. No, you shouldn't have those guts, because I've, kind of controlled your behavior in a certain manner. So this thing that you're doing is rebellious. Like, imagine their approach. And that's always the driving point at the back of the abuser's mind. It's never about the pain they've caused you. It's never about the emotional, mental torture they've caused you. It's never about the financial abuse they've caused you. It's never about the sexual abuse. It's never about any of those things. It's always about how you've made them look, the exposure, and the fact that whatever picture that they've painted in their head of what they want their lives to look like, you have decided that, no, I'm not getting into this picture perfect painting again. It looks picture perfect on the surface, but deep down it's a canker of worms. I'm not doing this. So you have to pay for it. That's just basically what it is. Abusers are guided by a belief system that a victim they should be in control at all time. Their sense of entitlement is, a base one of the belief system is based on the belief system that they are the one who is always right. So they will respond to issues raised about their behavior, for change by denying any wrongdoing, by minimizing the harm done, and by deflecting response, and by blaming the victim for any of those things. There's any apology rendered is just a manipulative one strategy to stop the victim from leaving when they realize that this time the victim is really not having it. So they try, then they kind of say, oh, you know what, if you said I've done something to you, I'm sorry, but I've apologized. But deep down that is a full apology. So when a victim is able to leave eventually, the aim of the abuser in any form of interaction is to manipulate the victim into coming back. And when they don't, they would use any of the post-separation abuse tactics to get at them, especially when children are involved. Because when children are not involved and you go no contact, you could even block them, whatever, and just get your healing back. So getting your healing back is finding yourself back to you're finding your voice again, setting boundaries. But when there are children involved, for the rest of your life, children will grow, do things, have grandchildren. You have to have some kind of communication with, the abuser. So civility must come, So the dynamics are so different. So you can insulate yourself and kids as much as possible. They even extend to the abuse, this post-separation abuse, they extend it to anyone who is seen as a supporter and will do anything to damage the victim and their supporters, their reputation, and make it difficult for the victim to have any kind of social capital, like I mentioned. So if they feel like this person might help their victim financially, okay, if it's usually a male or female, they might say, oh, they are having an affair, it could just be a friendship that knows how much the person has gone through and has decided, look, this is my friend. It might be a group of friends who decide that, look, our girlfriend or our man friend is going through too much, so let's help them with it. The victim is going to say, oh, it's their friends who is influencing them, or so and so who is doing this because they have something against me. And meanwhile, they forget that sometimes the victim has kept quiet for such a long time that little signs will point their friends to it. But even when they ask the victim and the victim doesn't say anything, they know people observe and they see things and they don't say much. But abusers, no. They are always right. They are always the ones who are doing right by themselves. The victim, their support system, everyone else can go to hell. So whatever smear campaign, whatever lies they can tell to break up friendships, to sully support systems, anything, they will do anything. That's how deep they can go, So to minimize the post-separation abuse, minimize contacts as much as possible with your abuser. If you need to speak to them, if there's a need to speak or to them, schedule a time to speak. Prepare notes beforehand and stick to it. So you can even send it to your abuser beforehand and say, look, these are the things I would like to speak to you about, so that you stick to it and you don't deviate and get into any kind of game they want to play with you, because that's what they do. Always take notes during conversations with the abuser, be it over the phone, be it over text. Ensure that you take notes, and then be focused, clear and precise. Set and maintain clear boundaries. End the call if the abuser becomes abusive, threatening, gaslights, or makes things difficult. So just use the BIFF strategy, BIFF, brief, informative, friendly, firm. Because you're not antagonizing. It's not about being antagonistic. It's just about relaying information, being civil, and because this is somebody that you actually loved and lived with, but based off of their treatment of you, you decide you could even actually love them and wish them the best. But that doesn't mean you want to stick in that toxic environment. They refuse to understand that fact. So if you're not brief, you're not informative, and you're not friendly, firm, it will just go back into a cycle of abuse where they will say other things to re-traumatize you. You're trying to heal, not to go back to past practices. So BIFF, brief, informative, friendly, firm. That's it. Now, these are the things that you don't do. Don't use the kids as a messenger. Nope, don't do that. Don't meet in person. Nope, we're not doing that either. Don't rush conversation. Nope, we're not doing that just because you want to whatever. Say what you need to say. Be clear, succinct about it, and that's it. Don't throw out anything. Text, letters, voicemails, emails, the post, whatever. Don't listen. Don't throw anything out. Don't make assumptions. Don't get angry. Nothing. Bear in mind, you cannot control how your abuser chooses to behave or communicate, but you can control how you communicate. So, my darlings, it's not just because you've left that abuse will stop. They will still find ways to control you, whichever way they can. So, post-separation abuse is real. If you don't know, you will make all the wrong choices, and your healing will not work until you learn to heal and let go of the toxicity, and you are in a space where you're using your story to help others heal, but not coming from a place of pain. My darling, you will be wounding yourself every single time. So I hope this podcast has helped you see things from a certain perspective. And if you've never had a therapist, trauma is such that it's difficult to heal on your own. A sense of community, a sense of being cocooned by people and being carried along is what you need. Healing on your own is so difficult. There are self-healers who've done it. You can do it. But I feel like when you have that network to fall back on, it does wonders. So if you need a listening ear, if you need to vent, if you need anything, if you need an opinion, As usual, my email will be down there. You can send me a voice message even on this podcast. It's confidential, of course. And let's talk. You can come back and listen to any of these resources anytime you need any help. If there's anything that you would like more, exposure or anything about, definitely let me know. So as usual, thank you for hanging with me this Friday. Thank you for playing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate the love. I appreciate everything. God bless you. And this has been Conversations with Ama, aka Mommy Doris, Emmy Emefa Tinkerbell. I love you. God bless you. And definitely, I will catch up for some cruise next week. Stay safe, wear your mask, and be good. God bless you. I love you.